Hey buddy, parking enforcement here. You're actually not allowed to park here. Never mind. You do as you wish. This is the Spike missile system. It's a family of fire and forget, anti-tank, and anti-personnel guided missile systems with an assortment of different models. It plays in the same yard as the infamous Javelin anti-tank guided missile, but perhaps you're a bit of a coward and don't want to get too close to that T-72. Well, the Spike may have some tricks up its sleeve. And unlike the Javelin, this missile allows you to fire it from almost anywhere. Yes, including a ship. But if you're from India, you might have a bit of a beef with this thing, as the Spike nearly cost you $1 billion, and then proceeded to nearly ruin your relationship with another nuclear-armed country in the process. The Spike was developed in the early 80s by defense contractor Rafael after some less than ideal infantry fights during the Yom Kippur War. It's an infrared-seeking, anti-tank guided missile that can also double up in an anti-personnel role. Depending on the variant, it's man-portable, vehicle-launched, helicopter-launched, or it can even be mounted on a Navy ship. The thing with the Spike, though, is it's kind of hard to define. Its available ranges span from 1.5 kilometers all the way to 25 kilometers, and it can use either heat-explosive warheads to neutralize armored vehicles or blast fragmentation warheads, depending on the role the Spike is fulfilling. In addition, it uses primarily 3 different launching platforms: a standard command launch unit, which is a battery, tripod, and thermal sight mechanism used by default, the ICLU, which is a newer version for certain upgraded Spikes, and the VMLS for when you want to mount your Spike on a Toyota Hilux. Not actually, but it's used as the vehicle launching system as seen with our guy at the start, and it can combine bits and pieces of these parameters throughout its different variants, making the Spike extremely versatile in a variety of roles. But let's start with the basics. The Spike MR and LR are the standard and most popular Spike variants, the original gangsters if you will. The MR stands for medium range and the LR stands for long range. The MR has a maximum range of 2.5 kilometers and is typically used by mobile infantry forces due to its light weight of 31 pounds. The LR, on the other hand, weighs closer to 90 pounds. Not a problem for someone as jacked as myself, but not necessarily ideal as a universal for mobile infantry units. It still is sometimes used in that role, but is also used on remote weapon stations and can be utilized on platforms like helicopters as well. It extends the range of the Spike MR from 2.5 kilometers to 4 kilometers and gets 30% greater armor penetration. But let's say this whole running around with your unit to hunt and kill tanks is a bit overwhelming for you. You didn't grow up in a rough neighborhood, you're a bit soft. Well, let me introduce you to the Spike ER, or extended range. At a weight of 120 pounds, it's much larger than the previous variants and is thus far less suitable for mobile units, but it of course comes with some perks. It can hit out to a range up to 8 kilometers. While it can be launched from a ground unit, it's often used by vehicles, helicopters, and even Navy vessels. The ER2 variant from 2018 extends this to 10 kilometers, utilizing an RF data link to allow real-time control from a command center when it's closer to its terminal phase. But newer is not always better. While some of what we've covered arguably provides versatility over the Javelin, it is the variant from the 1980s that serves as the real crown jewel of the Spike. The Spike NLOS, which stands for non-line of sight, does exactly what it says. It allows you to use a fire and forget anti-tank guided missile without having a direct line of sight on the target. It does this by incorporating a radio data link between the Spike and the command center. This allows semi-active control of the Spike from a command center, also allowing the Spike to acquire a final target destination long after it's been initially fired. Typically, it will travel about 8 kilometers before the data link kicks in, at which point it can travel an additional 17 kilometers for a total range of 25 kilometers. And while it's not been confirmed, the newest 6th gen version from 2022 claims to hit up to 50 kilometers like this. The NLOS is exclusively fired from armored vehicles, however, with a much larger weight of about 155 pounds, or about half the weight of your mother. So as we can see, the Spike is pretty damn good at what it does, and it shows in the sales of the weapons, with about 40 different countries using these things, including nearly 200 launchers and 4,500 missiles ordered by the Germans, and 36,000 missiles sold thus far. But India decided that it wanted a bit more than Germany, announcing a $1 billion deal to purchase over 300 launchers and 8,500 missiles from Rafael, beating out the Javelin in competition for the purchase. But just a few years later, the deal was cancelled, with India proclaiming it was due to design firing to support its domestic defense manufacturers instead. Given that Rafael had started preparations for delivering the missiles by opening a production facility in India, this didn't exactly sit well with the Israelis, producing a mild 3-year-long rift between the two nations. But as of 2017, it was thankfully announced that the contract will proceed as part of a restructured agreement. Now, if you like my shorts and want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit the like button and the bell for notifications, as the algorithm for shorts and long form are different, and this ensures YouTube knows you want to see my long form content as well. See you next time, nerds.